In this section, we're going to be looking at some overview facts about criminological theories, and then also specifically at the criminological theory that the authors of the Crime of the American Dream book are trying to put forth. So one thing that's an issue with criminologists is they tend to talk past each other. They use different terminology to talk about the same things, break up into these sort of feuding schools and camps because everyone's trying to have professional success themselves. They want to have journals or articles that are published in the top journals. They want to have the best presentations. So there's a lot of what we would call unhealthy competition in the field right now. Um, so some ways that new theorists have to go about trying to address this is to make sure that everything that they talk about is very clearly defined. What they're trying to put out there in their articles is very clearly defined. To avoid unnecessary or nitpicky sort of criticism that isn't really relevant to what they're trying to talk about. So what you have to do that, you have to create what they're called scope conditions, specified limits, where the theory's claims are sort of grounded in, where they're sort of holding. Um, this is where you have the ability to um, very clearly define what you are and what you are not talking about in your theory. What types of terminology you have, what types of things you're trying to address, what are the outcomes, what are the goals, um, and it's very important to do this as thoroughly as possible, again, to prevent those unnecessary criticisms in the future. So you have to look at what you're explaining, macro versus micro level, what are the operational definitions, and then also what assumptions are you making about the society, about the people involved, how it relates to what their outcomes are going to be. So talking about level of explanation, the first we look at is macro level, basically looking at societal level factors, looking at two or more variables across groups. We look at crime rates as a unit of analysis. Um, they don't look at individual factors, biology, psychology, things like that. Looking at larger sort of social facts or human aggregates of institutional entities. Maintaining the whole is more than the sum of the parts. What the criminologists look at, why levels of crime vary across social systems, why is crime patterned across social categories. So what about these groups that we create for ourselves drives people to in those groups to commit crime. Some examples: cultural deviance theory, social disorganization theory, and institutional anomie theory. Micro level theories do the opposite. They look at those individual factors, differences, two or more traits of the individual, why that affects that. Looking at things that we inherit and also things that affect us in our social environments. So they look at individual crimes that are committed as a unit of analysis as opposed to crime rates. They don't try to explain or target the aggregate behaviors. They're only looking at the rates or the crime committed by an individual. Not looking as much as anthropology and sociology. They are looking more at individual biology, individual aspects of a particular person that's committing offenses. They look at why are some people more likely to offend, why are some people more likely to comply. Social learning theory is very important, control theory, and general strain theory. Um, you can't interchange these units or these levels of analysis. A macro level theory is also a macro level theory. But what the authors of the Crime of the American Dream book are trying to do is try to blend them. So look at a macro level theory and a micro level theory that are talking about the same types of phenomena, looking at them on different levels, but trying to figure out how to um, let those theories come together and explain larger subsets of criminal activity. Um, okay. um, so, looking at operational definitions of behaviors. The definition of behavior is encompassed by the theory, whether that's general definitions of crime, sort of the grand theories, these abstract concepts, the single measure, argue that all crime can be explained by the same variable. Again, not really the most applicable. Crimes happen for a lot of different reasons. Even the same types of crimes happen for different reasons. Some of the middle range theories have these selected definitions, argue that crime types have very different definitions, focus on the concept of crime with multiple measures, looking at predictor variables, seek to explain specific types of crime that's taking place. So looking at more specific things that are driving individual crimes that take place. What their operational definitions of are on the author's theory. We talked about some of these in the previous lectures. We just want to look at them here. We're looking at the sort of overview of what the theory they're trying to put forth is. Focusing only on serious crime, criminal law violations causing serious economic or physical harm to individuals. Focus on the aggregate harm. The two main ones they look at are murder and robbery, because those have very intense effects on their victims. Also, because there's readily sources of information on those types of crimes. You can see when they happen. They occur infrequently, but still produce a lot of social concern. The way that they're covered in the media, the way that people respond to those types of events happening. And they don't require some sort of special explanation. What the analytical paradigm they're setting up is fundamental assumptions about human behavior. So what assumptions are you going into the theory about people? So what they do is they adopt a sociological paradigm focusing on the social organizations issues, the macro level, and also target the interplay between the culture and the structure as they relate to crime in the United States. So looking at how the values that we hold important, how that affects social institutions. We've already talked about this a little bit in the past, that in the United States we are overvaluing the economic system, which then has intense negative outcomes on social institutions. So you're also looking at what causes crime or what causes changes in crime rates, as opposed to theories that look at what are the effects of the criminal justice system. Two examples of that are labeling theory, how putting these labels on people, labeling someone a felon, labeling a drug addict, has an impact on the way that they behave. But also, in terms of the criminal justice system, we talked before about conflict theory, how people in power sometimes make laws that a lot of the people that they're being visited upon don't agree with. But that is they're able to do that because of the power that we put in those criminal justice officials. So some of the ways they try to link up some of these theories, identifying similarities across units of analysis and pairing one macro level theory with a micro level theory. Some of the examples they come up with is cultural deviance with social learning. Cultural deviance says that there are these areas where deviant behavior is part of the culture, is more accepted. In those environments, individuals are more likely to socially learn those criminal behaviors. Same thing, social disorganization and control theory. Social disorganization theory says there's an institutional lack of positive social systems, attachment to school, attachments to religion or other community service types of organizations, employment, family. When those things don't exist, there's no ability for individuals to form attachments that would then control their behavior. The same thing with anomie and strain. Anomie is basically saying there's normlessness conditions. People don't know where their next meal or their paycheck or their rent is going to come from. So when you have those situations, it causes people to have strain on the individual because the individual can't meet those standards. The individual is feeling those normlessness conditions, and it makes them basically make bad decisions. So again, just trying to take some of the theories that are on different levels that are addressing some of the same things or have sort of a causal link, and then studying crime within that context. So what Messner Rosenfeld's institutional anomie theory is saying, the macro level theory combining Marxist ideals with anomie. All societies have a defining cultural ethos or core normative identity. the American dream is the dominant cultural ethos in the United States. Four parts that we talked about before: achievement, individualism, universalism, and materialism. Stable institutions differ from the flexible or fleeting local institutions. The ethos is expressed in four primary social institutions. These are the strongest social institutions that we have: the family, the political system, educational system, and the economics. We leave off religion, mass media that mean different things to different people. These are the four that are pretty consistent and having an impact on everyone's lives. There's overlap between these social institutions; they're interdependent upon one another, and as we've seen, the effect that the economy has had has created an imbalance among these four institutions. So because of this, we've seen a devaluation of the functions and roles of the other three sides, not as important as the economy. Degree is a means to an end. No one cares about learning in education. It's only about getting the degree. The social stock that we put in a home owner versus a home maker. Um, Refusal to vote versus refusal to work. What that means in society. Nobody really. I mean, there's varying societal ire that comes up. People that refuse to vote, but someone refusing to work is not going to be looked at positively in many subsets of American society. Um, Part of the reason this is especially problematic is because there's a competition for resources among all these social systems. The school day, the school year revolve around the work schedule, and we've seen that really, get blown to shit over the last 3 months, with people's schedules just being completely put into upheaval. Some people have been able to respond to that better than others, but there's a lot of uncertainty happening right now. Family routines take a backseat to work routines. Um, we don't have much maternity or paternity leave mandatory in this country. Some companies are starting to add that, but there's no federal requirement for it. We've seen campaign finance laws and their impact on the political system, where now corporations can basically give as much money as they want. They create legal entities that funnel money into political campaigns, and it makes it impossible for any sort of grassroots campaign to really take off anymore. The rules of the economic system then take over everything else. Again, the competition in school is not geared towards being the most educated, putting yourself in the best position to have a good job. Whether that means stepping on people to get there isn't really taken into consideration. And basically everything, then the family, the political system then bends its will to the economy and maintaining that, which is, again, exactly what we've seen over the last 3 months, where policymakers in the federal government are making decisions not based on public health concerns, but only on restarting the economy. And now we're starting to see in late June of 2020, we're starting to see, spikes again in the virus because they've opened states up too early. Georgia and Florida have both seen in the last week their highest reported single-day totals to date, when they had seemed to have flattened a curve. The public health system was too slow for the economy. So this is sort of a real basic breakdown of what the theory looks like. You have these two elements of culture and the social structure that then dictate people's behaviors. So who a person is, where they come from, and then also the situation that they're in impacts their ability to make decisions. And these things are all sort of have a confluence to where they're creating crime. So the American dream produces intense cultural pressures for monetary success, which contributes to enormousness conditions. The American dream itself also contributes to those conditions, sort of and individualistic nature, and everyone's expected to participate. That culture affects the social system, creates a dominance of the economy, which then weakens the other institutional controls. So having an intense pressure for monetary success and weak institutional controls in a situation where you don't know where your money's going to come from next week or the next month, next year, next 10 years, who's going to pay for your kids' college, all those things create high levels of crime. They create situations where people are under stress and they make bad decisions. They have limited access to positive decisions to make, so they're more likely to engage in bad decisions, whether that's violent crime or robbery or drug sales or other types of antisocial behavior. Uh, the culture and then the social structure set the stage for the poor behavior. So again, this is just the basis of their theory. Take this and think about what we're going to cover going forward, what we've already covered in the past, and how legitimate you actually think this sort of feedback process is.